You ever wonder what really separates people who build wealth from those who just don't, even when they start from the exact same place? Well, we're going to break down the real data backed timeline of when Americans actually get rich. And more importantly, why some people get there and most, well, they don't. The answers are all in the numbers. And trust me, they might surprise you. All right, let's start with a story. Meet Marcus and Jaime. They're both 38 years old. They graduated around the same time, even made pretty much the same salary right out of college. But today, man, their financial worlds are miles apart. Marcus, he's sitting on a cool $187,000 in investments, money that's just quietly working for him. Meanwhile, Jaime, he's staring at a credit card bill that just keeps creeping up, wondering where his pretty decent salary is actually going. So, same starting line, right? But they are absolutely not in the same race anymore, not even close. So, what gives? What happened? That's the big question, and we're going to dig into the real numbers behind wealth in America to find the answer. Okay, but before we do that, we need to understand the map, so to speak, because honestly, the way we usually hear about wealth in this country, it's basically a lie. I'm sure you've heard the headlines, right? The average American is a millionaire. And technically, yeah, the average household net worth is just over $1 million. But look at this. Look at the median. That's the household right in the dead center of the country. That number? It's just $192,700. See the difference? The average is getting pulled way up by a handful of super, super wealthy people. And here's exactly why that gap is so huge. Check this out. The top 10% of households, they own 67%, two-thirds of all the wealth. The top 1% alone controls nearly a third of everything. And the entire bottom half of the country, they have less than 4%. So, from now on, when we talk about the typical American, we're only going to look at the median. It's the only number that tells the real story. So, what does that journey actually look like for the median person? Well, here it is laid out. You start with less than 40 grand before you're 35, and it slowly, and I mean slowly, builds over a lifetime. But here's the kicker. Look at that peak. Right when you're ready to retire, the typical household tops out at about $410,000. Think about that. After 40 plus years of working. So what does 400 grand even get you in retirement? I mean, really. There's a common guideline called the 4% rule. Basically, you can safely pull out 4% of your savings each year. For a $410,000 nest egg, that's about $16,400 a year. Yeah, I mean, it's something, sure. With Social Security, you'll get by, but let's be honest, that is not the comfortable travel the world retirement most of us dream about. Okay, so this brings us to our first major milestone on the map, and it's a big one, reaching $100,000. See, it's not just about hitting a six-figure number. It's the moment the entire physics of building wealth completely changes for you. The late, great Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's right-hand man, he put it a bit more bluntly. He famously said, the first $100,000 is a bitch. And he was right. He knew that grinding out that first 100 grand is the hardest part of the whole journey. You just have to get there no matter what it takes, because of what happens after you do. And this is where the magic happens. Look at this timeline. If you invest 10 grand a year, it takes you almost 8 years to struggle your way to that first 100,000. But the next 100,000, that only takes 5 years. And the one after that, less than 4. And then it gets even faster. Why? It's simple. Your money gets a job. At 100 grand, your portfolio is already earning you thousands of dollars a year all by itself. It's like you've unlocked an accelerator. So when does the typical person finally hit this magic number? Well, the data shows it happens right around age 37 or 38. And, ding, 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 that's exactly where we find our guy Marcus. But remember, he's already at $187,000. How? Not because he got some massive salary. It's because he started putting money away consistently way back at age 24 and just never stopped. Okay, so you've done the hard part. You hit 100 grand. The math is finally on your side. But here's the part nobody talks about. This is where most people hit a giant brick wall. Seriously. Only about 1 in 4 households ever manages to get past the $500,000 mark. So why? Why do people stall out right when things should be taking off? It's basically a perfect storm of 3 things that hit all at once right in our prime earning years. First, soaring housing costs. Second, the true cost of big things like cars. And third, this sneaky thing called the Henry trap. Let's look at a couple of these wealth killers up close. Let's start with the car payment. A $735 a month payment for a new car, it kind of feels normal these days, right? But what if I told you that same amount, if you invested it over 30 years, could have grown to, wait for it, $1.66 million? Let that sink in. That's not just a car. That's a car with $1 million opportunity cost, paid for with the future you never get to have. And then there's this thing called the Henry trap. Henry stands for high earner, not rich yet. And it is a huge problem. Data shows that literally half of all Americans earning over 100 grand a year are still living paycheck to paycheck. It's proof that a big salary alone doesn't make you rich. It's the gap between what you earn and what you actually keep that builds wealth, period. All right, let's talk about the summit, the $1 million milestone, and I want to look at who actually gets there. Because the reality is probably the exact opposite of what you're picturing in your head. The research on this is just fascinating. Forget the Lambos and mansions. The average American millionaire is 61 years old. Nearly 80% of them got zero inheritance. And get this, a third of them never even earned a six-figure salary in a single year. So what was their secret? It was 28 years of consistent, boring, automated investing. That's it. They just didn't stop. And this chart right here shows why starting early isn't just important, it's everything. If you want to be a millionaire by 65 and you start at 22, you only need to put away about $117 a month. Easy enough, right? But wait until you're 35, now it's $443 a month. Wait until you're 45, it's $1,300 a month. Look at the pattern. Every 5 years you put it off, the price you have to pay nearly doubles. Let me put it another way, because this is huge. Every single dollar you invest at age 22 can turn into $88 by the time you retire. But if you invest that same dollar at age 40, it only becomes $12. Think about that trade-off. When you delay, you are literally trading $88 of your future for $12 today. So, let's put this all together. What does it all mean? That median journey we mapped out, that's not your destiny. It's not set in stone. It's simply the default setting. It's what happens when you just let your finances run on autopilot. And here's what that autopilot journey looks like. Step 1, you hit that $100,000 mark sometime in your late 30s. Step 2, life gets expensive and you get bogged down. You stall out somewhere before you hit $500,000. And step 3, you cross the finish line at retirement with about $410,000. That's the default. But the timeline looks completely different for people who decide to grab the controls. Building wealth isn't about some secret formula or being a genius or getting lucky. It's about making a few simple, specific decisions early on and then sticking with them, especially when life gets messy. So let's bring it back to Marcus and Jaime. Because Marcus started early and just stayed on the path, he's on track to hit $500,000 before he's even 50 and $1 million before he's 60. Now what about Jaime? Can he still get there? Absolutely, he's only 38. But the key is he has to start now. Not next month, not after the holidays, not when things finally calm down, because let's be real, things never really calm down, do they? Because every single day you wait, the timeline just gets more expensive. The price tag for your goals only goes in one direction, up. So the only question left is, when are you going to start?